are world famous for the Rocky Mountains. And to the western part of the state, we have the Great Rocky Mountains. What a lot of people don't realize about Colorado is that as a state, Colorado is divided almost exactly in half. And to the eastern part of the state are the Great Kansas Plains. So it's very flat. Well, because of that unique topographical landscape, Colorado is one of the only places in the world that has both buffalo and cows in close proximity to one another. And there's a fabulous lesson for leaders to learn from studying the way that these two creatures respond to storms. When storms come, storms almost always brew from the west, and then what happens is they roll out towards the east. And what cows do is very natural. A cow can sense that a storm is coming from this direction, and so a cow will try to run east to get away from the storm. Now, the only problem with that is that if you know anything about cows, you know they're not real fast. So as the cows run east away from the storm catches up with them rather quickly. Well, without knowing any better, the cows continue to try to outrun the storm. But instead of outrunning the storm, they actually run with the storm, maximizing the amount of pain and time and frustration they experience from that storm. Isn't that stupid? You know, humans do the exact same thing all the time. We spend so much of our lives constantly trying to avoid the inevitable challenges that come along with the difficult circumstances that our very own choices have led us to be in. And I can speak from personal experience here. People who are in debt, constantly we try to find ways around paying our bills. People who are unhealthy, we often make rationalizations for why it's no big deal or why it doesn't matter or how I've already tried. People are struggling in their relationships, their marriages, often avoid the difficult but meaningful conversations that need to be had to reconcile those relationships. And store managers, we often avoid holding people accountable and having to do the training because we're trying to find that balance between kind of being their friend but kind of being their leader, right? And it can be challenging at times. But the key insight that the ultra performers have made, that most people not yet have made, at least not consciously, is ultra performers realize problems that are procrastinated on are only amplified. Problems procrastinated on are only amplified. Waiting always makes it worse. If we don't address the issue, if we don't do the training up front, if we don't model those must-see behaviors early, like if we don't do the difficult things early, it makes it worse later on. What buffalo do is very unique for the animal kingdom. See, buffalo will wait for the storm to cross right over the crest of the peak of the mountaintop. And as the storm rolls over the ridge, buffalo turn and then they charge directly into the storm. They run at the storm, and by running at the storm, they run straight through it, which actually minimizes the amount of pain and time and frustration they experience from that storm. Notice how it's the exact same storm. I think it's such a great metaphor for all of us because we're all dealing with very similar storms. Even though you're in different markets, different states, we're all trying to hire good people and train them and keep them and keep them motivated, and even personally, right? Like we have financial struggles and health battles and we lose family members, and we don't always get to choose whether or not we have the storm. The only choice that we have is how we respond to those storms. And more specifically here, when we respond to those storms. This buffalo mentality is very representative of the take the stairs mindset of ultra performers. And it brings us to the paradox principle of sacrifice, which simply stated is this: easy short-term choices lead to difficult long-term consequences. Meanwhile, difficult short-term choices lead to easy long-term consequences. So the great paradox here is what seems like an easy way of life. Doing whatever we want, saying whatever we feel like eating whatever we want, spending money on credit if we can't afford it, right? And not working as hard as we could. Those things that seem easy in the short term are the very vehicles to the more difficult life. And inversely, the things that seem hard, spending the extra time doing online training, investing in our own education, working the extra 10 minutes to make our sales goal that day, getting there a little bit early, doing the things that we don't like doing are the vehicles to the easier life.